So, first of all, everybody, thank you so much for joining tonight. My name is Dr. Jasmine Goodman. I am the founder of the Adjunct Academy. I have given myself the title of Dean of Faculty Success because I can. And the reason why I created the Adjunct Academy is because I realized that there are a lot of people who want to become adjunct professors, but they have no clue how to do it. And so my goal is not to glamorize the adjunct life, is not to sell you a dream. It's to give you the reality of what it means to be in higher ed. I have worked as a TA, a graduate TA, visiting professor, assistant professor, tenure track, non-tenure track, all the things. And so this is a lane that I'm really passionate about because as we all know, adjuncts are the lifeblood of any academic institution. And so for the inaugural episode of Between Classes, I am glad to feature Professor Lynton Felix. And also, the reason why I chose this title is because those are some of my most favorite moments. You can even add, and also transparently, Professor Felix and I, we've known each other for 20 years. He is 20 years my senior, and I've known him for 20. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. JK. But no, we've known each other since undergrad. And so for me, it's been special just watching him, grow in his respective career and then being able to see him join the faculty at our alma mater. And he can attest to you that between classes is where I could have. Between classes are those moments where we have like these informal conversations. We're sharing best practices. We're sharing what worked, what didn't work. Erica, I see you laughing in the chat. You know my personality. I like to have fun. I bring fun to all of my teaching in the classroom. So with that, we're going to get started. So, between classes, is where adjunct professors get real about navigating the classroom without losing their minds or their joy. As I've shared, my favorite moments are connecting with my colleagues between classes because we really get to just kind of get into the nitty gritty of things that we're experiencing. But it's not always bad. Sometimes it's I just tried this new activity and my students really loved it. So sharing those aha moments, that's the goal behind between classes. And so we're going to talk about the grind of the adjunct life, also teaching with purpose while you're also still building your own path because life happens to a lot of us. And so I'm going to turn this over to Professor Felix. And if you can just give me just a high level intro, and then we'll go into your origin story.
Okay. Professor Lynton Felix, graduate of Clark Atlanta University. Is it the illustrious? Do I have to say the illustrious Clark
Yes,
Atlanta
you
University?
do. The
Let's go with
illustrious.
the illustrious
Hmm
Clark
hmm
Atlanta University, class of 2003. Department, radio, television, film. More television as my focus. 20 years media work from news when I got out in 2003 all the way to multimedia specialist. Traveled around the country doing interviews, demos, things like that. In between, stopped in IT for about 8 or 9 years, so a diverse background.
hmm
Originally from, well, grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. Originally from Trinidad and Tobago. Shout out to my mom and them. They're watching, so I got to shout them out. Also to my dad and my stepmom in Providence, Cranston, Rhode Island. So,
hmm
but, came down to Atlanta in 2000. I was an older student, not going to lie, older student. I graduated high school in 1994, but it was 3 or 4 years afterwards. I was a little lost in what I wanted to do. Kind of bounced around, got into college radio, and that led to television. And then, see, I met my younger brother, who's 4 years my junior. He got a basketball scholarship to Park Atlanta, and within like the first 2 3 months, he told me, "Hey, you need to come down here. They got a TV studio." He sent me the brochure that CAU TV had at the time. It's what's her name was there? God rest her soul. Forget her name, but she was
hmm
his point of contact. And after that, he got there in 2000. In 98, by 99, 2000, I had applied. I got accepted and started in 2000. The rest is it.
Yes, and then you met me, one of your favorite people outside of your wife, one of your
Of course,
favorite
of course.
people in Clark,
Top
Atlanta, and
100,
we
of course.
top 100. You know what, y'all? Okay. I've never had to end an interview early, but today we might. But no, so I am glad that you shared that piece about being an older student because a lot of times some people may have, and I'm going to write about this for next week's the Adjunct Academy post, but sometimes people think that you have to have this super linear path, that you have to be this great student on paper, and like those are the people that are qualified to be professors. We're going to get into more of your story because we all know that the more lived experience you have, the more you really can relate to your students. So we're going to talk more about that. But I love that you shared up front that you took some time off between high school and attending Clark Atlanta in order to, just live life and discover some things. So
Yeah.
I'm going to jump right into the questions. So you
Okay.
spent over 20 years as a creative producer, video production and editing. You've done news, but you've also worked in corporate video as well.
Mhm.
What did the early part of your career look like before higher ed was even on your radar?
Um, Coming out of Clark, like everybody else, I wanted to get into the industry in some way or form. While I was in school, I know I PA'd on sets. I worked on at the Georgia Dome for the Falcons and just Georgia Dome Productions, high school football as a PA. But when I graduated, with the recommendation of Brian Jenkins, I got a editing job at WSC TV. Um, Started off editing the morning news. I would be there from like 3 in the morning till about 9 or 12 noon.
Mhm,
Did that for about 3 years, all the while freelancing, did some stuff for BBC. Just on the editing front, that was my main thing was editing.
mhm,
After that, got laid off. That's part of the industry. Layoffs happen. So I got laid off from WSC right before Christmas of 2005. But by February 2006, I had pivoted and through the recommendation of another faculty member at TAU, one of my mentors, also Brian Jenkins is a mentor. This individual, he's Dr. Brian Bentley now, one of my big influences. He got me on at, I don't know if I can say the school name, you know, eh, it
yeah.
was a local art school. It was a local art school, but in the IT department.
Mhm,
And most people were like, well, you have a background in television, but growing up, my parents always, you know, gave me and my brother opportunity. We got access to computers, things like that growing up. My stepmom worked at Hasbro, so we always had those things around. Um, and because of Clark Atlanta, another mentor of mine there, Tim Latner, he got me into learning not only is if I'm going to be an editor, that my tool is the computer. I got to learn the computer. So if something goes wrong, I know why it's wrong, so I'm not waiting for somebody to fix it, and it
mhm,
makes me more viable. So I went into that art school, working in their IT department, but within with the media students, for the film and video students and audio students. So it was perfect for me. I got to stay around the same things that I always knew, but in a different capacity in IT. So did that for about 8 years, worked my way up from a tech, desktop analyst to where I was leading a small campus indicator, but well, about 600 students and staff. And I was the head of that for about 4 years, so altogether 8 years. And then I got the itch that I didn't want to go down the IT hole because if I get any further, I get further away from the students, which was we'll probably discuss later. But that was the main thing that kept me excited about the job. So I
mhm.
got the opportunity to go into the corporate sector through another connection from another alumnus at Clark Atlanta and a good friend of mine, Lee Sallant, got me in at a local company. I don't want to say the name, but got into their multimedia department and did that for about from 2016 till about 2024. Doing corporate video, we did anything from headshots, demos, studio shows. We traveled the country doing testimonials. So it ran the full gamut. We did a lot of things,
Yeah.
and now Clark Atlanta. So we'll go from there.
No, and so what I love about that, you've already talked about two really important things, and that's networking and
Hmm.
pivoting. So networking, you've called on, I'll say name dropping because I know them, but you've name dropped
Hmm.
about 5 or 6 people that were instrumental, and I think that that's really the importance of building those relationships while you are in school, and if you didn't, you still have an opportunity to kinda just get tapped in because that's where opportunities come from, which is what we teach our students that a lot. Like, I always say, "Today's classmate is tomorrow's CEO." You don't know where that person's going to end up. At least be nice, at least be kind. But then you also talked about pivoting, which in the media industry, technology has changed so much so that you've always had to pivot. And then throughout this time, you not only got married, you had kids. So you had real responsibilities that
Yep.
you had to, you couldn't just go out and just do whatever you wanted to because the
Mhm.
work was there and the work was necessary. And so thinking about these moments, what was the moment or even the season of your life when you started to think, maybe I want to become a teacher? Maybe I want to be a professor?
Um, well, I can pinpoint it's always been something that was innately in me. It started when we were in undergrad. As I said, Tim Latin is one of my mentors as well, and he was in charge of the only well, at that time, we only had 1 computer lab, 13
Yeah.
computers, everybody in the department trying to edit on it, and I was one of his lab assistants. So within that, he got me into editing. I learned Final Cut Pro, I learned the computer, but he just let me go. He would be like, "Lynton, handle it. Okay, figure it out." We learned how to create DVDs. We learned how the computer works,
Mhm.
hard drive space, all that stuff. We learned everything. So he then had me start doing workshops, helping people learn how to edit. And from there, I would just be in the lab, and you know me, everybody was like, "Linton's a bit of a joker, whatever." But then it entertains me and keeps me, you know, focused. I'm weird like that. Like if I'm bored, then I start to lose interest. So, but I ended up with people just ask me, "How do I do this? How to do that?" I do that, and I just would help. And then it kind of like, well, I like helping people. I like teaching them stuff and make the moment when they realize how to do it. And I'm like, oh, what I said really helped. And then fast forward about, let's say, I'm at that art school by like year 2 or 3 at that art school.
Mhm.
I moved up to a senior tech, but at that point now students are coming to me because where we worked at, which had all the equipment. So people would
Yeah.
come with issues and be like, hey, come fix my computer. It's not doing this. And my first question would be like, what is it supposed to do? And then
Mhm. Mhm.
that eventually led to them, because I'm like, I can fix it, but if you don't know, then, you know, you're not good at what you say you're gonna be. So if you want to be an editor, you got to know your tool. The same lesson I learned from Tim Latin. So it started like that, just working with the students and just getting them to learn, just
Mhm.
not to run for help, but understanding how to solve the problem before. At least you want to know how to solve the problem yourself, not just have someone fix it. And then I realized, I kind of like the semi teaching thing. And at that time, I was like, I do need a master's to teach, and spoke with my wife back then. I was like, in the future, maybe at some point in my life, I would like to teach but I have to feel like I have enough experience where I can stand in front of these kids and speak to them at that point in time. So I would say about 2007, 8, around there is when I kind of got the itch that I might want to teach in the future.
Got it. And so I want to break down some things that you said there. So the seed for teaching and learning was planted early for you while you were working as an undergraduate student in that computer lab. It
Hmm.
was then watered when you were working at the arts college and you were working with students and you realized, okay, I can tell them or I can teach them, and you opted to teach them, which
Hmm.
arguably that takes more time and it takes more patience.
Yeah,
It takes a lot more time and patience.
and I would get feedback from people I work with. They're like, "Hey, you're spending too much time. Just fix the issue." And I'm like, I always of the mindset like, okay, if I'm in this position in IT, I can fix the problem, but if the problem is not really a problem, it's just you kind of realize it's not a problem. They just don't understand. And yeah,
Right.
job security and everything, but
Mhm.
I feel like the teacher in me was like, I can use this position I'm in to help someone teach them about computers because in my life, I learned about computers and it gave me another avenue for revenue, so to speak. So it was
Yeah.
like I could go work in IT as well as have a background in television and radio and all that stuff. So I was trying to teach that. And plus, a lot of them looked like me, just younger at the time. So it
Mhm.
kind of felt like these are my little brothers and sisters. I didn't, like, hey, because you don't look like me, I'm not going to help you. I did it with everybody, I
Yeah.
can tell you. But especially with
Mhm.
the ones that look like me, because a lot of times they didn't have that upbringing, that background, and that access to the tool. So a lot of times they were seeing Macintosh computers and all that stuff for the first time, but never really got a chance to work on it. So I was there teaching them exactly how the computers work, And at the art college, when I became an IT lead and headed my own school, I had student workers, and I would teach them like, "Hey, this is why I'm doing this. This is what it does. This is how you approach it." And just giving them, letting them know, hey, you can have other things you're good at, not just
Yeah.
the one thing you're going to school for.
And I think that's really important because when I first started this, a lot of people would say, well, I don't have teaching experience. I've never taught
Hmm.
before. And it's like, well, if you think about it, education and teaching has happened along the way. It's just a matter of like how you package that experience. So for what you just shared with me, like I would never tell someone, oh, just say you were a professor at the arts college, because that's not true. But you
Hmm.
can talk about how you were able to, develop like informal instructional plans, and you're able to watch a student and monitor their growth as a result of your training. So that's
Hmm.
just really important. So with all of that, you get your master's in education. So it's not in media, but you did get your master's. It was paid for by the institution where we were actually
Yeah.
both working at the
Uh-huh.
time. So shout out to
And, and,
that
and,
free
and
master's.
before, just as a sidebar, before you go any further, and one of the reasons why I did start thinking about teaching is when I ran into you. Just,
Mhm.
I knew you were coming, but I didn't know where you were. Just one day you just popped up at the counter, and I was like, Dad. So that's what the sidebar. Go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
And he was like, if she can do it, I know I can do it. And I was like, dang, friend,
No,
okay, you
I've
can.
been I've been pushing you since you went to
Yes.
Howard and did your grad school.
Yes,
Good
yes, you
job.
have.
Hmm.
You have. So now with that, you're now teaching in the very department that trained you
Hmm.
alongside some of the names that you mentioned. You're now working alongside them as faculty. What did that first opportunity to adjunct look like for you? Tell me how that came about.
Well, it came about because of the actual world. Like I said, I worked at that corporation downtown in Midtown. I thank them for the employment for the last past 8 years, but they abruptly said, "Hey, we're going to disband the department," and I was kind of like, "Okay." And I had a few months to think about it. Talk with my wife, and like, listen, done 20 years of corporate type work, and I've always wanted to teach, and I've always wanted to do something that gave me fulfillment. The work that I did in those years, it was more about it gave me experience, but never really that real fulfillment like I've done something. It was more like I completed a task. They
Mm,
appreciate it, and I'm
mhm,
good at that. But I didn't really have that feeling of at the end of the day, I did something and it had a value, it had a lasting, a legacy, so to speak. So she was like, if that's what you want to do, pursue it. And then I was like, all right, maybe. And then like sometimes the Most High just does things. You hit me up out of the blue. I don't think I even text you. I just got a text like, "Oh, what you doing? You ever thought about teaching?" And I was like, "Yeah." And you were like, "Okay, hold on. Send me your resume, and we might need an adjunct, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Okay, let's see where it goes." But all the while, I'm thinking I got to do something. I got to do something. Then, boom, out of the blue, I get an email, and I'm like, "Okay." And that's how it started for me. It was like that was the first. Okay, this is real. And then I got the syllabus and I got the classes, and it was like, okay, got to be on campus in this day. And I had the little, what was it, the orientation,
mhm,
what is that called? I forget the first big meeting. And then I'm
mhm,
like,
mhm,
okay, this is real. I'm looking around and I'm like feeling out of place because I'm like, these people are gonna feel like I'm a phony. I'm not really a teacher. They're a teacher, and these
mhm.
were some of the emotions. Like, am I really supposed to be doing this? I can think I can do it, but these people look like they got the hang of it. They were born to do this, and I got into it, and like my actual first day, it was weird because I had an online class, but I had one in person. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and my first day walking in, and I'm like, oh man, this is real. Like I used to be in these rooms. I've been back visiting many a time, but
Yeah.
this particular day it just felt like maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, no, no, no. Maybe I'm just nostalgic about being here. Am I supposed to be teaching? But then students started walking in and they're looking at me and I'm like, ooh, it's about to get real. And then after that, I had done my, talking with you and Dr. Bentley and whatnot, giving me advice about, just be yourself. And I did some research and I said, instead of like talking about the class, let me talk about myself, told my
Mhm.
story, kind of trying to connect. And that's something I learned the years working in corporate at that art school with all these kids, conversation and connect can help you connect with them and kind of help you with the teaching, so to speak. So that first day was more about let me tell you about me, find out about them, kind of build a rapport, and you know, then after that, I was kind of like, now I'm excited to just get into it.
Mhm. So with that, I think that what you shared, and I also felt that my first time teaching, I'm like, wait, I was earlier in my career, so my
Hmm.
imposter syndrome was very much so valid because it's like, girl,
Yeah.
what are you doing here?
Hmm.
But I think part of it is imposter syndrome, but it's also for you, from what I've observed, it's almost like the weight of the calling was just very present. You're like, okay, this is where I need and want to be, and you're finally
Hmm.
able to walk in it. And so I think it
Yeah.
was this great moment of, you know, not you're not at the corporate job anymore, but you have this opportunity to teach. And it's at the place where you were like, it was like this full circle moment for you that happened
It was
at the right time.
it was surreal. It was surreal. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It was very
Hmm.
surreal because I've thought about it and I'm like, but when it happened, I'm like, this can't be real. And you know, I felt at ease. It's been a long time since I felt in any job. Every job I always had this, at any point they could take it from me, whatever,
Hmm.
and I'll just move on. But this one, I was just like, like you said, it was a weight of responsibility because now I'm not just completing a task. I'm responsible. So, I'm responsible for the outcome. I'm responsible for for what students think in the future. I'm
Hmm.
responsible for their view of the department. So now it's like every night, every day, I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like you said, in between classes, like, hey, I tried this and it worked out pretty good. Oh yeah, I've
Yeah.
done that before. Can you help me with this Canvas thing? I don't know how to submit grades. Things like that. So,
Yes. Yes.
uh-huh. So, you know, uh, that responsibility of those who came before me and those who had an impact on me kind of, got on me. It was like, okay, am I going to be that person or am I going to be the person who's just there? And
Yeah.
so that first week, first day, it was a surreal feeling.
But also, let's kind of get into some of the moments because you
Hmm.
skipped some things, okay? And hey,
Okay.
DeVal, I see DeVal just joined. He was
DJ.
also one of our classmates
Hmm.
and one of our really good friends. But
Hmm.
so you skipped some parts. You said, "Oh, I got the syllabus and the textbook," and I just went off. Now you were texting me like, "Okay, so what's the textbook? Where's the syllabus? What's the goal of this class?" And I was
I didn't
like,
know. I didn't know.
I know.
Are we going to be real like that? I didn't know where we
Let's
was
be
going with
real."
that. Okay, so like you said, I called you up like, okay, what's the plan? And I was like, where do I go? Because it was a multimedia writing and reporting, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I've had the multimedia experience, and I'm not a professional reporter or writer, but I
Mhm.
understand the process. Went to school, had learned that, but I was like, what book are we using? You know, what what is the teach lesson plan? Is there a specific lesson plan I'm supposed to follow or whatnot? So
Uh-huh.
I had
Uh-huh.
to end up going out there and just researching and trying to come up with a lesson plan and things I could
Mhm.
do. And then, I got the book, got in my hands on a copy of the book and started breaking it down. Okay, we're gonna focus on this. And then, that's when I realized, okay, I like doing this because
Yeah.
that was the fun part is just the research and trying to find ways to make sure I could communicate the education, the information, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, okay, Jasmine, what you think? Am I doing it right? What do you think? I'm sending you emails and stuff like, look at this,
Yes, there were
and
lots of emails and text messages and
and
phone
I got
calls, but it's important though. You
mhm,
had to kind of walk through your process of doing that. And also, I want to interject here and I'll let you finish.
mhm,
Sometimes departments will have a course pack, whereas the syllabus is the week by week outline, it's the lesson plan, it's the presentations, the homework assignments, quizzes, all of that. Other times, they will just give you a syllabus with no week by week and just say, hey, go teach. And I have found myself in many of those circumstances, and it it will push you. It will push you. So it sounds like you had to go out and kind of pull together the resources yourself, which can be taxing because you're just this is your first time ever teaching.
Mhm.
And then you were also having to build out the class while the class is about to start. So what was that experience like for you?
It was nerve-wracking, but fun,
Yes.
if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Okay.
Um,
Uh-huh.
it was because I'm like, "Is this even right? What I'm trying
Mhm.
to do here, is this even right? Is this gonna
Mhm.
are the kids gonna look at me like, 'Oh, you're a fraud, you don't know what you're talking about.'" But, that's just in my own head. And,
Mhm.
I was just trying to make sure I was on my first try, I didn't wanna mess up, and I didn't wanna people to say, "Oh, he can't do this," and then after all these years that I've been wanting to. So, I took it seriously, and I did all the research, I asked the questions. You know, I I'm not a person who's opposed to asking for help. A lot of times I try to
Mhm.
do things on my own, but things that mean a lot to me, I would be like, "Hey, help me," and I reached out to you, I reached out to Dr. Bentley, I reached out to some other friends I know, just asking questions, and
Yeah.
got everything situated, and I was like, "Alright," started, and got through the first week of lecture and all that stuff. Because the first week is a lot of students just enrolling, whatnot, so that second week, started the lecture, and it was just that part was weird because as I started talking, I would just turn around and look, and everybody's just
The Gen Z
looking at me.
stare. The
Yeah,
Gen Z stare is
yeah, the
real,
Gen Z
y'all.
kids. So I'm
They
like,
just
that's and that's what yeah, that's what thing that Gen Z, they just
Mhm.
look at you. So I'm thinking,
Mhm.
"Oh, they must think I'm not doing this right then, obviously, because 'cause they're just looking at me." But in my head, I'm like, "Wait a minute, they don't know this stuff either." So I started asking them. So in the middle class, I'd be like, "Hey, let me know. Are you understanding what I'm saying?" And I let them know
Mhm.
right away, like, I'm the person I like interaction
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
I'm not sitting
Mhm.
here like I'm the A1 expert. Maybe you might bring up a point that I can expound on or whatnot and
Mhm.
have a conversation. And I let them know that. So just tell me. So part of the learning curve and not only was the preparation, but also realizing every resource, every person I come in contact with is a resource, even my students. Even though I'm teaching them something,
Yeah.
they can teach me. Maybe they don't understand the way I'm presenting, maybe the concept,
Mhm.
how I'm approaching the concept doesn't make sense, and we would sit there, and if they didn't understand, I'll say, "Explain to me what you don't understand," and then I'll be like, "Okay, okay, now this is what I'm meaning, blah, blah, blah." But then I would go back and say, "Okay, I gotta scrap that because they're not understanding. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm just not presenting it correctly." So that was the big thing is like, just being in the classroom, preparing and hoping that you're doing the right thing. So like,
Mhm.
yeah, I just got a syllabus, your help, and a Canvas login, and you matter of fact, you had to come show me how to use Canvas. I'd never used it before,
'Cause
and we got a
yeah.
little tutorial.
Yeah, and I wanna jump in here because a couple things that you called out. One, you mentioned earlier that you were a non-traditional student, and so I would love for you to talk about some of the imposter syndrome that you felt, and then also how you were a great student in your major in undergrad, but you just kinda not so much in other areas. So what was it like for you to have not been the perfect student now coming to teach?
Well, I would how I explain it is I was always smart,
Mhm,
but with me, if whatever if I'm not doing something I'm interested in, everything else kind of falls by the wayside. I've
mhm,
never been
mhm.
diagnosed with anything, so I'm not going to say that I have this, but I've known this all my life. If 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 I'm not doing something that I'm interested in, everything else just seems, unimportant. I can't focus on it. So when I came to Clark, it had been after like 3, 4 years removed from high school graduation, and in that period of time, I was with my best friend Calvin Anderson, rest in peace, and my other best friend Michael Manley. We started DJing on the radio back home in Rhode Island. So I was at community college because in high school, my high school was more of a science school, and I was interested in television. They didn't have that, so I didn't do anything. I just kind of muddled through high school. When I got out, I had nowhere to go, but I still had interest and went to a community college. Wasn't really doing anything. Then my best friend Calvin was like, "Hey, I'm at Rhode Island College at the radio station, and we had talked about when we were in high school, look, we wanted to be DJs." So he's like, I'm at the college. We can get down on the radio station." Went over there, changed my life, changed the whole trajectory. I enrolled at the school, as a marketing major because I saw Boomerang and Eddie Murphy made it look cool.
He
So I was
did.
like, I want to do marketing. And then when I got into it, quantitative business analysis let me know I was more
Mm.
interested in, let's say, not that form of marketing. I was more in the maybe PR. I was more on the
The
promotional side,
creative.
the creative side,
Mhm.
not that side
Mhm.
marketing. But at that point, I was already involved in radio. I did street team promotion stuff. I had a couple radio shows, things like that. And it just that started driving me. Then I went to like a local tech trade school there for my associates in video production. My dad knew a guy over there, and he was like, "Yo, try the school." And that's where everything blossomed because I was in radio, and I realized radio had a limit for me because I like the creative freedom. But once you get to commercial radio, it's kind of like unless you're doing drive time or morning show, you're really just reading scripts. So I was like, I'm gonna go towards the visual end. And then my brother got a scholarship to Clark Atlanta, and the rest is history. I came down here. Number everybody at the school in Rhode Island was leaving to go somewhere. There was Rhode Island's not a big state, big market, so
Mm.
there wasn't a lot of TV jobs. So Atlanta was number 7 at the time, and I was like, my brother's down there in school. I always wanted to go to Atlanta, and then I came down, and the rest just was just beautiful. I would say it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. But back to the non-traditional as far as my
Mhm.
education. So
And not being like a perfect student, like the
yeah,
4.0 in every class type
well,
student.
when I came to Clark, with my associates, I had a 3.9, a 3.9 something graduated, right? With my associates.
Mm.
So when I got to Clark, I was a little older and I was maybe too smart for my own britches because now I'm just focused on television. So I would go to my classes, I would go to all my general ed courses, and I would sit through the syllabus.
Somebody said
And
you were skipping Spanish class.
who said that? Uh,
The entity.
yeah.
Go ahead. Mhm.
Mhm. Well, yeah, because I read the syllabus, and the syllabus said I could miss so many classes and still get
You
a
were one
degree.
of those students?
Yeah, but
Too smart for
I
your own good. Okay.
but here's the thing, I wasn't skipping class to just go hang out on the quad or the promenade. I was skipping class because I was in the studio either shooting something, editing something. I was doing something constructive because in my head, I need to make sure that when I come down here, I put myself in the best situation within the field that I know I want to get into.
Mhm.
So within my major, I think my GPA was like a 3, close to 4. But
Mhm.
overall, my my general ed courses, I was like a 2.5. I passed. And
2.5? Oh,
uh-huh.
Lynton.
So my
Oh,
overall came down to like a 2.75. But in the industry that I was choosing, people like they don't care about your GPA. You got a
they
degree,
don't.
cool. They care about because I had a network. They care about your portfolio. So I had all the tools. I had all everything. It's just that I was too smart for my own good, and
Yeah.
that part I messed up, and it affected me later on. But the Most High worked things out for me. So
Mhm.
when
So
I
it
started,
ended up working out. But you one of those students, and I should have known that because I was very much so like up until my
hmm
sophomore year, I really cared about overall GPA. After a while, I was
hmm
like, mass media. This is all I want to do. So
yep.
how does it feel now knowing that you were that type of student teaching those types of students?
Well, and part of it is learning from. I think teaching ultimately is learning from your history and trying to pass that wisdom to make things a little easier for the next
Mhm.
generation. So I was very honest in my classes, and I am every time. I let them know the mistake I made as far as it came to that aspect of the academics. Like, and part of it messed me up because in our department they had a number one. What is it like? You could be the student of the year in math comm or whatever, and I thought I was going to win, but because I was like, I was doing a lot of stuff and I had
Oh,
my GPA, my major, but they were like, no, it's based on your overall major. I was like, well, what that got to do with math comm? So
yeah.
it kind of messed
Mhm.
me up
Mhm.
there, you know, but I talk to students and let them know like, hey, take everything seriously. Like I played the system a little bit and it affected me in the long run, but I was able to work my way out. It made things a little Steve gets agreed. It made things a little difficult on the back end, but it worked
Mhm.
itself out because when I started for grad school, thank God I worked at the school, so they offered me the ability to go. for my master's, but I was on probationary basis because they were like,
Oh.
your GPA not grad
Mhm.
school worthy. They were like, you got, the first semester. I was on a 9 month probation or something like that. If in that 9 months I didn't meet the standard, they would let me go. But within the first semester, they realized I
He's
was that
good.
guy. Yeah, I was that guy.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you know,
You know what? No. No, you're not. Hey, Mickey. So, what I love about this is that you have not just lived a very, and I keep saying non traditional, it's not a bad thing, it's just different.
mm,
You have this non traditional path into your education, your career,
yep,
and now you're also sharing that with your students. So, you mentioned that the first week of class, you just talked about yourself and the
mhm,
students got a chance to know you. You're also sharing things that you wish you would have known along the way. And
mhm.
so tell me more about how has being transparent helped your building rapport with your students who literally will just stare at you like this. Like the Gen Z stare is nothing to play
Yeah.
with. It is unnerving. That's literally
Mhm.
how they look
It's
at
like
you.
you're in a
While
fish.
also
You're at the aquarium.
right, and they won't take notes either, so they're just staring at you, not taking notes. So how was that transparentness and that openness helped you to bridge that gap with Gen Z?
Uh, I took a page out because I from when I was in undergrad, and like I said,
Mhm,
the mentors, the people in the department, they allowed us to ask questions. They allowed us to not just see them as administration, educators, and whatnot. They see them as people as well. And I think part of that is due because we're at an HBCU, so it's a little easier, or you feel more inclined to be that way. But it helped me connect with them because I was honest. Like, this is who I am. And, I made it funny. I made it, had pictures, showed them, old undergrad photos, and it kind of loosened them up.
mhm.
And I think it helps because it builds trust. Um, that's the main thing. And that's what I've noticed. When I first started, they kind of like feeling me out. Some people would talk to me, but after like the first month or two, I started noticing kids coming up, staying behind, asking me questions. See me in the
Yeah,
hallway. How you doing, Professor Felix? And that's weird. Just hearing that all day, every day. I still just be like, I'm Lynton, but Professor Felix, can I ask you something? Or what? But the first real feeling is when someone came and asked me for help. Hey, I want to be this, but I don't know. How do I go about? And I was like, well, okay, this person sees me as someone who can help. And I was like,
yeah,
okay, so I connected with them with it. I built that trust, and that's the main
yeah.
thing. Like that, I want to do is build the trust, and then I can help with the education. But the trust is, it builds trust.
Yeah, and I think that's most important because what I've realized about Gen Z more than anything, they don't want to just know what's in a textbook. They want to know your perspective. They want to know how to apply
Hmm.
it. They ask questions about everything.
Hmm.
And that's something that it can be a bit disarming when you first encounter them because you're like, wait a minute, hold on. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
but you have to realize like they have different questions and that's okay. But being
Hmm.
able to answer those questions, being honest and transparent about your own journey that lets them know that they're not alone in this,
Yeah.
that there are other people that many people that question their path and they still turned out okay. So I want to
Hmm.
transition a bit and talking about the reality of the adjunct life. Okay. So we talk a lot about giving yourself grace and also the adjunct hustle and grind. Tell me, what does that look like in your week right now? Like how from, family responsibilities to teaching load to course prep, how do you do that?
By the grace of God and my family, like right now, because I'm gonna be honest, I'm about to be 50, and I always wanted to teach. I told my wife, when I get to that number 50, I feel like that's the time that's gonna be the chapter in my life where I want to do that. But it was getting further and further away, and I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. And when it happened, I was like, I gotta approach it like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I had to make the decision. I want to focus on the education, especially at my alma mater. I want to make sure that I'm the best I can be because that's I would feel like a phony if I'm shouting CAU and I'm mailing it in as an educator. But
Mm.
I made the decision that I'm not trying to get back into the corporate thing. I did 20 years of that. So I do some freelance work at a local church doing some editing. That's my background. So I do some editing, graphic work for them. I have just a regular weekend job that just to get money, pay the bills, and the teaching is my main thing. I'm there 2 days a week, but I have three classes. So I'm there. What am I there? Tuesday and Thursday. Because it's Christmas.
Mhm.
Tuesday and Thursday, but I still have to prep Monday, Wednesday, and all that stuff. And then the weekends grading papers. So even though I'm adjunct, it still feels like a full time job. I got three classes, but I'm
Yeah.
also in grad school myself. So again, so this last year has been
A
nonstop,
lot.
7 days a week. Doing something in some form or another. So all my time is spoken for. But I still have my kids. Wake up in the morning. My wife does a great job. She gets up with
Mhm.
our oldest and make sure he gets to the bus stop. Sometimes I can do it, but I might have been up late, working on the lecture or doing my homework. So she'll do that, but then I'll get up, make sure I'm there to see my daughter off. We see our daughter off, and then I get in the car, head downtown, and for the days that I'm home, I'm off. I'm working,
Yeah.
getting work done. So it's busy, but I know once grad school is over, it'll settle down. But it's my goal to just be the best at it, and maybe one day I can be full time. But right now I'm an adjunct.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm hearing, rumbles about that happening. So we're gonna, keep our hands in prayer
Mhm.
for you with that. Now, getting back to what would you say were some of the early shocks that you wish somebody would have warned you about when becoming an adjunct professor?
Oh, it's the
As in, what should I have mentioned to you, but I didn't?
it's the administrative things. The,
Okay, let's talk about
the,
it.
the administrative things like how do I put it? Because there's a lot of emails that come in of things that you have to do, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to do that too. It's like, oh, make sure we get the early alert system for students who aren't doing well. Follow up on attendance. We have this meeting steering committee. We have uh, this experience. You can get more experience in the classroom. Take this module on how to use Canvas, and I'm like, well, I'm an adjunct, but I'm still like feeling like no obligated to do it because I want to do it. But so it's like
Mhm.
just the administrative stuff is what really surprised me at the amount of
Yeah.
things that you have to do. So even though
Mhm.
I know you have to do things, but just seeing the amounts and the brevity of it, like certain things, you're like, why do I have to do that? And you're just signing the one where the non compete, whatever that you're not. What is that?
Oh, compliance.
The compliance, and I'm like, I thought I signed it. They were like, no, you didn't. I'm like, oh, okay, my bad. So that kind of was the main thing. But as far as with the students and the academics and the classroom stuff,
Mhm.
it's I don't know, surprising. It's just like you said, it's the students, the actual type of student. Because I'm I have to remove myself because I'm thinking about when we were in school. Oh, we did this, we did that. When I have to meet them at who they are and not worry about what I used to do or what used to be. We can talk about what the department was like when we were there, the atmosphere, blah blah blah. But I have to look at it now from the standpoint like they have to make it that for them, and
Yeah.
however that is, I got to meet them there. So learning them and like you said, the fear, the not taking notes. Some of them take notes now, but there's a lot of picture taking. There's a lot of snapping the
Mhm.
screen, and I'm like, wow, okay,
That was
that
never
makes
a thought.
that was
Yeah,
never a
but it
thought.
makes sense.
Yeah, because then I'll tell them, this is a a PowerPoint. I will upload it, but they still take the pictures. But that's their way of note taking. Because I asked them, I
Yeah.
said, why are you taking pictures of it? Just write the notes down. They're like, this way it's on my phone, and they're a generation that's always on their phone, and they can like with the new phones, they can interact with the images anyways. They can copy and paste
Yeah.
off the text off of it. So I was like,
Mhm.
I have to accept that. Like this is who they are. So now I have to meet them at where they're at and try,
Yeah.
the legacy of what we knew the department to be, and everybody comes back when we were here, but I have to make that for them because somebody did that for us. So
Yeah, and so I wanna
that was a good
parse
thing.
out I want to parse out some of what you said. So I want to give our audience an insight into the administrative side of things. So Professor Felix talked about, early action reports. So typically when you have, and not that every university does this, but universities have a mechanism of making sure that they catch students who are at risk of failing. And so they require every single professor to post a report about if this student is yes or no, are they at risk of failing the class, because they want to make sure that they're able to intervene in the event that that student needs some assistance. All of it goes back to student retention to make sure that when a student enrolls in a school, that they actually graduate. So there are demands that are placed or responsibilities placed on professors, including adjuncts, to make sure that those things happen. Even the federal government, for attendance purposes, we have to submit attendance
Mhm.
for every single student. So you may be the professor that says, well, I don't take attendance. Well, you're going to have to, at least for that
Yep.
first 2 weeks, because
Mhm.
financial aid is dependent on those things happening. So you're not able to opt out of a lot of the administrative stuff, because that's just kind of par for the course for what you have to do for that work. But there are other things. And what I will say, a lot of institutions are great for professional development. So if
Yep.
you are a new adjunct professor, you can, take advantage of the teaching and learning center or workshops that they have on how you can be better. And those are things that you can add to your CV for future roles. So thank you for sharing some things that kind of caught you off guard.
Mhm.
Um, what was the first moment where you realized, oh, okay, I made the right decision by coming back to teach?
Um, it was a I had a media seminar class. That was, the senior seminar. That was my first. I started January 15th. That was my first of 2025. So going through that class, well, media seminar and multimedia. So it's when the students, they came back and told me, Professor Felix, you made you made this class fun. I was kind of skeptical, but I understand it now, and you made this class fun. I was expecting it to be
Mhm.
this way, but you're you made it fun. In my senior seminar class, helping them with their portfolio and things like that. And a lot of them coming back and saying, "Oh, thank you for helping me with that because I didn't know if I was doing it right." Just simple things as going over their website, helping them put content together. Like some of them have their websites already, but I was like, "Hey, you gotta section it off this way. Make sure you put these images here, separated into groups." And they were thankful, and they came back and they'd be like, "Hey, take a look at this." So it was just the interaction where like the trust. Once they didn't see me, yeah, they trusted me. I had some form of credibility with them,
Mhm.
and that was that moment. It wasn't a specific moment. It was just people coming up, and then hey, can you write me a recommendation, or I'm looking at this scholarship. Do you tell me if you think it's a good choice or not? And because then you realize, like when we were there, we were doing the same thing. We were actively looking for help. You know, we didn't outwardly say, we just ask questions. And for them, they're doing the same thing. And I think I have to be more, just aware and listen and make myself approachable. I never wanted to be when I decided to become a educator. I was like,
Professor, you can say it.
it's still weird. It's still weird. I'll give it another couple months. But
Okay.
when I became a professor, um, I was like, I'm gonna change the game, blah blah blah. And I was like, I had to step back and I was reading articles. People like, don't go in there like you're going to change everything. What you can do is be the best at being you, and that is
Mhm.
someone who who's excited about the education, excited about the work. I'm not going into the class like, oh, I'm just here to, we're gonna go through this. Well, no, no, no. I'm gonna do things. I'm trying to make it exciting for me too, because like I said,
Yes.
I'm the type of person if things are just stale, I might lose focus.
Mhm.
So within each class, I try to come up with little in-class assignments that kind of get everybody involved. I'm always, trying out new things. I'm get the lecture together, but there's got to be something that drives the point home. That I'm very
Mhm.
hands-on, so I like if we're going to talk about something, we're going to do it. I'm not all about just theory and speaking. We're gonna put it into practice, you know?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's just exciting. Like, I'm get
Yeah.
for the first time in 20 something years, I'm doing something that makes me feel like, even if it's taking time where I have to stay up late, early into the morning sometimes, where I'm doing lesson plan, grading papers. That's another thing, the grading and papers thing. When you give out homework, you're like, okay, I might need to give less. But
You
then
always
again,
forget about the time that it takes to
yeah,
grade the
and I gotta go.
assignment that you
Yeah,
give.
and I got 20 something people, 18 to 20 something people per class, and it's like three classes. That adds up,
Mhm.
and I'm giving out two assignments per week. It adds up. But that's the fun part, and even though it's hard, and it's the fun part for me, and challenging myself. That's like becoming a professor is one of the things that has really challenged me. That where I didn't go into it thinking, "Oh, I can do this." It challenged me like I want to do this. I want to be good at it, and I was scared enough to make sure that I'm always focused. So
Mhm.
in 20 something years, this has been like the first thing that's really put that fear of failure and wanting to be successful at it in me, where I'm always on my P's and Q's.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that you mentioned there. One, experimenting in the classroom.
Mhm.
So just saying, like, I'm just going to try it and see if it works.
Yep.
Two, not feeling like you have to be this imposing authoritative figure is my way or the highway. Like you don't have to do all of that. You can still have fun. And I see one of our colleagues sharing experience. So definitely make sure y'all are paying attention to the chat
Mhm.
or tips on how you can do that. And so it's about experimenting. It's about giving yourself permission to have fun. I love tying in anything that's happening in pop culture. Oh, we're talking about it. Like we're
Mhm.
going to find a way because I teach more of the African American images and media ethics courses. And so for me, that's a way for me to bring all of this and make it all connect to the real world. Now you have this saying, plan to work in order to work the plan.
Mhm.
What does that mantra look like in your teaching practice?
Well, first of all, the origin of that started with my best friend, Calvin Anderson, Michael Manley. We started our own little entertainment company when we were younger. And it was just more or less, we were looking for a way to be creative and constructive, called Ill Vibe Entertainment. Go ahead and laugh. Yeah,
It
you
was
know
what
that.
now?
Ill Vibe Entertainment. And I'm proud of it. But we
Yeah,
DJ'd.
we've all made mistakes. No, go ahead, go ahead.
I got a tattoo of it too. Anyways, but it was more of a brotherhood. It was a way for me and my friends to do things constructive, you know.
Mhm,
Got into DJing, and I was like, how can we do something with this? And Ill Vibe came. I just had an epiphany, and I started writing up stuff. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna start off on the radio. Then we're gonna start bringing in cameras. We used to record. I used to record my radio shows, and I wanted to put them on like public access, but they wouldn't let me because they said I didn't shoot it in the studio. Which I asked them, I was like, that doesn't make sense. You're just
uh-huh,
gonna play it back. Why do I have to be in the studio? But at the time, they didn't understand that. So then that plan to work in order to work the plan that actually came. We went to a conference at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and it was a MC from the Ultramagnetic MCs. I forget his name. He was the lead. He was the lead rapper, and he said this
mhm,
thing, and it struck me like a lightning bolt. Plan to work in order to work the plan. All it means for me is hard work. If you have an end goal, you're gonna, no matter how creative you are, you have to work. You have
mhm,
to
mhm,
plan. You have to work. There's no way you're gonna get the result that you want if you just say, I want to do it and hope everything works out. So for us, it was, if we wanted to DJ at clubs, we wanted to get street promotion gigs where we handed out flyers with Def Jam and whatnot. We went out and put out flyers for our own radio show, and we would get people listening. And then, the back in the day before streaming, there were record street. Every label had like a street team, and sometimes they go into areas and say, "Hey, we're looking for some people just to be our street team for this artist who's going to be performing, or there's a concert and we want to pass out stuff." And we would do it. So late night, I'd be downtown Providence putting up flyers after the club, passing out um, EPK tapes, snippet tapes to people about this Def Jam artist or this. Um, I think we did something for. Uh, I digress. I forget about my history, but that was part of it. It was just a mantra
Hmm.
for my friends and I to stay focused and say, "Hey, we can be more than what what is expected of us." I mean, we're in Rhode
Yeah.
Island. It's a small state, even small city. Providence is big, but it's we can fit Rhode Island into Gwinnett County. So
Yeah.
your opportunities, especially for a young black men, were rare. So it was like, how can we create opportunity for ourselves? And that mantra was just that. It was just something to keep me focused about working hard, and that transitioned to everything from when I got to Clark. My plan was
Hmm.
I'm going to go down there and I'm going to get into the TV game. They got a lot of people, a lot of connections, a lot of opportunities, whatever it is. If I got to run cameras, if I got to edit, if I got to go TD, if I got to pull cable, I'm going to do it. Then that make sure I network. So it was just my mantra for working hard. And I tell the students that, like, when you're in the class with me, you're going to work. I'm not here to give away a grade. If
Right.
we're in a production class, we're going to produce something.
Hmm.
If we're in a
Hmm.
multimedia, I teach multimedia writing and reporting. We're going to do something multimedia. We're not just going to take the test. You're gonna actually put it into action. So if you're gonna write an article, you're gonna go interview somebody. You're gonna follow up. You're gonna do all the things. We're gonna do a podcast. You're gonna interview someone on a podcast. Use all the things that we learned so you can see it. Because I know
Yeah.
for me, that's how things work. You can give me definitions all day, and I can remember the definitions, but the application of when to use it, how to use it, that's when it clicks for me, when I get to put my hands on it and actually do it. And for me, as far as teaching, it makes it easier to teach because now they help in the education, they help in the learning. It's not
Yeah.
me having to put the learning in your head. You can sit
Hmm.
there and then you do it, and then all of a sudden you can see oh, I see what you're talking. This is what it means. I see how it applies. That feeling of when they get grasp the concept. So plan to work in order to work
Yeah.
the plan was just it is an important mantra in my life. Three best friends just trying to make it in this world. So it's just hard work. Family
Yeah.
trait, hard work came from West Indian parents, but hard work is just ingrained in me.
And I think that's something that's important is when you're teaching and when you're thinking about the type of professor that you want to be, there are
Hmm.
so many valuable lessons in all the things that you learned along the way. The
Yeah.
mistakes, the failures, the wins, all of those things, like there's value in that. And so being able to share that transparently, it, as you said earlier, it builds that trust with students. Now, what I will say, because I've had a chance to witness you come into the department, and I would say that you walked in day one killing it. I feel like within it, one of your first classes, you were doing live podcast episodes like your first or second semester. So you were bringing in alumni guests and you're doing all these different things. Talk to me about what prompted you to kind of take on that additional, because you didn't have to do that. So you
Hmm.
took on that additional responsibility to create learning opportunities for students, but also networking opportunities for students as well.
Okay. Well, that stemmed from just our history, and the department has given so much to me. Like I said, job opportunity. Down the line, we were told everyone here is your network. Every
Mhm,
connection you make can be someone who you end up might need in the future. May not be the best of
mhm,
friends now, but in the future, you don't know because you're still growing. So, like, especially with you, and we never even matriculated together. I graduated and you had just started, but I would come back and help Tim and BJ. Matter of
yeah,
fact, you always tell people with Dr. Bentley, I did your what was it, the intro or fundamental class? He would give like what's it called? A test. What is that test called? For you
well,
about the camera
competency, yes, you
competency test.
did.
And I
Mhm,
did, and
mhm,
you remembered it, and then once you said it, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I did do that." Because we would
mhm,
come back. We would come back and help
yeah,
out, because when we were there, people like the deployment, security issues, things have changed over the years, but the door would be open, and alumni would just show up. we'd be in the studio and you'd see an alumni in the back of the studio, and they'd come over
Mhm.
and tell you, "Hey, when you're focusing the camera, do this. When your movement, do this." Or I like the way you did that. We like the way the show looks. Think about doing this. So it was always this extra resource. It wasn't just the professors. It was the real world examples of people doing it, and you built those relationships with them for when you got out. So, with the pandemic and everything, and kids, there was a little bit of a separation, administration changes, so everybody's trying to get back. And when I would go back, I noticed that was different. You know, a lot of the alumni wasn't as, you know, let's say present.
Connected.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or connected is a better use of phrasing. And I was like, that could be my thing. Like, and I love that. I love bringing back people who I came up with, those who are doing things with our and representing CAU. And there's a lot of generations of people who are willing and want to interact with our students. I was like, I'll make that my what is the word? That is my what's the church thing? How do you call it again? That is my
Cross to bear.
not cross the beer. That I tried to get too churchy. I'm sorry,
Mm.
but that is my mission. You know, that is my what I want to do. I want to bring that back. And
Mhm.
with the alumni thing, we have a lot of great alumni. We're doing things in the world,
Yeah.
and the things that these kids are watching that they don't know that
Mhm.
alumni are in charge of it. One of the biggest ones is a good friend of ours, Terrence Red Claiborne, had him in. He's always been down to help the department at any point
Yeah.
in time. He came back in and did a couple workshops, and when the kids found out he was, the lead DP on Inyala, directed some stuff, and he's showing them what he's done, they're like, "Wait a minute, you did that?" And
Mhm.
now you can see them perk up. So now I'm trying to show them, like, these are the footsteps you're following. So when you come to this institution, this department, know that this is what's possible. So I wanted to, kind of bring that back, and a lot of the alumni want to come back. So just trying
Yeah.
to create vehicles and avenues for doing that. We had Brandon Peters over the alumni. Uh, we had an alumni panel over homecoming of 2025
Mhm.
where they spoke to students. Um, in my multimedia class, we part of it, they had their own little podcast, and it's a podcast that I want to continue on myself called Real Talk. That's where we talk
Mhm.
to alumni or just guests, who came from HBCUs who are doing things. Professionally, we had Tawanda Salisbury. She was our first guest. That she's uh she's in charge of crewing at Warner Brothers. So when the
Mhm.
kids and I'm like, yeah, this is my good friend. She was the treasurer of Drop Frame Productions. She was my
Drop
next door
frame.
neighbor. We would cook
Mhm.
chicken wings together. But now she's the head of crewing at Warner Brothers,
Mhm.
downtown for Turner. And they're like, wow, we didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah, these are the people who are out there. And, like a lot of academic institutions, their alumni play a big part in the student
Yeah.
success. And I feel like
Mhm.
for our department being one of the larger ones on campus, we're missing out on that. And I want to be a conduit to bring that energy back. So
Yeah.
I'll be doing it. You know, I feel some kind I don't wanna feel like I'm overstepping, but it's just my energy, like, I see a
Mhm.
way, "Hey, how can I make this learning more impactful? I can do this.
Yeah.
I can bring in a guest speaker." So, yeah, maybe I wouldn't say day 1 or,
Okay,
I would
day 3. Day
oh,
3, he was
week
he
2,
was
week
running
2.
things, but it was great, and I'll say this before we move on, but
Mhm,
it was great because you brought the energy that I felt like our department was missing in terms of, like, this hotbed of activity for, like, students in working in the studios and working on
mhm,
productions, and I'll even say there was one student that was in your class at the time during the homecoming event. That was his
yep,
first time ever, running
mhm,
camera. And one of our classmates, like, okay, this kid is really good. And so just being able to see a student kind of walk in unsure, but
mhm,
light up at the opportunity to get hands on experience and then to get connected with, that was Lee. Lee was like, okay, he's amazing. How can we get him involved? And so those are
mhm,
the moments that I feel like give us the energy. But I
mhm,
also with those moments, we still have to protect our boundaries and our peace. So tell me, what boundaries have you had to set around whether it's email, grading, office hours, or any of that in order for you to protect your energy as an adjunct who also has like an active family life?
Uh, I told them right away, um, in the syllabus, because I know when I did, I read it and I put it in there, and I'll tell them like, okay, my office hours this time to that time, and you can email me or you can set up a conference call, but I'll get back to you because if I'm Monday, whatever days I'm there, I'm there. The other days I'll get back to you when I can't because I have a life outside of that. But it's just basically telling them once they get to know me, I'm available, but at the same time, they're respectful. Like, a lot of the kids are very respectful. They'll email me, okay, I know it's late. Whenever you get a chance, I want to ask you a question. I want, can you give me an answer on this? And if I'm available, I'll say, yeah, I just happen to be up. But most of the time, it would be the next day. But they've been really accommodating. They're not really, nobody's really pushed any boundaries, like trying to make me do stuff or be out of my comfort zone. Because I spelled it out clearly in the syllabus. And I told them, I was like, if you read the syllabus, you know my rules, you know? So as far as boundaries, nothing has really been crossed yet. You had a few people who may have thought they could try, but, you know, it was deaded. I'm very, like, you, you can try it, but it's
Because you
not
were
going to
that
work.
student, so you
Yeah.
recognize you, right?
Yeah. I can tell right away who's doing what, and I'll let them know, like, hey, you're supposed to be in class. And the one thing I'm doing is you're paying a significant amount of money for school. I
Yeah,
already have my degree.
you
I
do.
I'm paying my money back, you know? Do you want who are you gonna blame? You can't blame me because I'm here and I'm here to teach you. If you don't
Mhm.
show, you can't at the end say, I've heard this too. That's why I'm saying some students try to push that boundary. Oh, school ain't teach me nothing, blah, blah, not in those nicer words. And then I have to check them and say, but what did you do? Was the teacher there? Because I'm here.
Yeah,
You've been
yeah.
absent, so
Mhm.
they've that's my retort to them. Like, you have to take responsibility in your part to play in this education. It's not just a one-way street. I can give you the
Yeah.
information. How you receive it and if you receive it is up.
And part of those moments and having those real conversations is reiterating that this is the student's responsibility. No one, the government is not making them go to college. They
Yeah.
K-12, that was parents' responsibility, but now this is truly their responsibility. And so helping them to kind of break down their goals and or their role in their learning is important because students will say like, "Oh, I didn't learn anything in that class." Okay, but did you read? Did you do the homework? You didn't do any of the work, but you're quick to say what you did or didn't learn in the class. And so that's something that has kind of taken me aback. I've noticed that that's a shift in the type of the generation of students where they don't embrace accountability as maybe we did. But I think that's something that by recognizing in the classroom, being able to call it out, is a learning moment for them, regardless of how frustrating it may be for you.
Mhm.
Now, as we begin to wrap up, I would love to for the adjuncts who are listening, who view this work like you do in terms of building a legacy while they're still figuring life out, what's one step that they can take towards reaching this goal, let's say in the next couple of months?
Ah, well, the thing is, for me, I have to really it if you have a family, you have significant other, the journey, it's going to be difficult. How do I put this nicely? Being an educator, it's not like in the movies where they say, "Oh, I'm a professor and I have my pipe and a cardigan and I drive a Benz and
Yeah.
classic car." It may not, depending on the institution. I know what institution I'm at because I went to school there.
Mhm.
But it offers you the ability to leave a lasting legacy. So you have to, in your mind, figure you have to yourself accept that it's not going to be glamorous and it's not might not be overly lucrative. So you have to, get that in there, like, "I'm gonna do this because I wanna do this." And, make sure if you have a significant other and family, they get on board because it's gonna be a journey, because one thing it does afford being an adjunct, I can take on other opportunities, whereas when I was full-time in the corporate world, they had say over all my time. Like, there was plenty of
Yeah.
jobs that people would say, "Hey, can you do this, part-time?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, but then, I might have to travel. I might have to get in early, and I can't do it, and I can't tell
Yeah.
them no because contractually they have precedence." So it kept me out of that that realm of being able to freelance and do other things that interest me. Being an educator, you can get that opportunity, but you have to make it up in your mind that this is what you want to do, and you got to go find out. Speak to people you know who are in the field and get their honest opinion. I know we spoke many a times. You told me the negative. You told me, but you also told me the positive. But you're still
Listen.
there. You were still there. So I'm like, mustn't
Mhm.
be all bad. But, that's
Yeah.
the thing. You have to get it into your head that this is what you want to do and then do your research and find out also what you want to teach. Can I identify maybe where you want to teach? I was lucky that I got to teach somewhere that always, I told my wife, if I'm going to teach, I, the previous school I was working at in IT, that was ideal for me. But I always said CAU was where I always wanted to teach
Yeah.
because it had given so much to me at a point in my life where, like I told you, I was wavering. I wasn't a wayward child. It just I didn't have a focus. And when I
Yeah.
started getting my focus when I came here, oh, it just the atmosphere, seeing the school, seeing the campus, it was amazing. And meeting the people and just all of a sudden I went from, you know, feeling like I'm gonna be a stranger to like, oh, this is like home, you know?
Mhm.
The people I've met are like family. Like I don't, I've known these people 20 something years, seen them with kids. I've seen you get your master's, and then I've seen you get your doctorate. And then I'm like,
Oof.
wow, this is amazing. And Professor Funderburg, just watching her, guys were undergrad with me. Now you're leading the department in your,
Mhm.
in the curriculum, and I'm watching you guys like, wow, this is amazing. Kevin Cottrell is there as well, and
And
it's
be
just,
high.
oh yeah, it's not Professor Hightower. It's just,
Mhm.
it's surreal. So the school has given me so much. So just do your research, before you get into it, and really understand if you're getting into this education, especially higher education, that it's something that you really want to do, or it's not for a payday. It's for like satisfaction. Like it really honestly feeds my soul. Where for the first time in 20 something years, I have some substance. I feel like some substance in what I'm doing. I've edited, I've
Yeah.
shot, I've done all kind of things, and it just felt like, oh, I was like, oh, I did a good job. But then eventually it goes away, and you just feel like shut the tap. Go on tomorrow,
Yeah.
and the next person's gonna say, prove to me you can do better than, what I'm saying. Like, so this is, it has to be, for use of a better phrasing, it has to be a calling, so to speak. Like you have
Mhm.
to want to do it, and on the daily, I'm excited. As being adjunct, just going in, I'm excited. I tell my wife all the time, like, life is hard. We know what society looks like right now, but for those 2 days and those 6 hours a day, I feel like I'm floating on air. And it's like I have to contain myself that I don't do too much.
Yeah.
But some days I'm like, but if I don't do too much, am I not doing enough?
Yeah.
You
That's a lot to think about. So as we're wrapping up, not bars. As we're wrapping up, please drop your questions or comments in the chat.
Relationship
Professor
too. Too.
Felix, yes. And Mickey says that also be comfortable with being people facing. Patience is
Hmm.
definitely a virtue in this field. Yes,
Yeah. Hmm.
because some of
Yeah.
these
You gotta.
children,
Yeah. Some of these children, and
these people,
I tell them
kids.
like I'm a parent, so I treat them. I'm like, I can treat you as a big brother, but I have a 14-year-old. He's gonna be 15. Shout out to my son Michael. He's gonna be 15 on Thursday. And early happy birthday to my wife Sean,
Mhm.
aka the NGB. She was in the department. She took out.
Oh, that's Sean?
Yeah, that's
Hey,
why she the
Sean.
Spanish class.
Yes.
She used to go, and she would be like, the teacher would ask her like, "Where is he?" But then
They've been
before,
partners in
like,
crime since
mm,
forever. Okay. We're not
uh-huh.
gonna encourage that. We love the full circle of the moment, okay? You were that kind of student, and then now you're not.
Mhm.
Well, we won't get into the other part of that.
Okay.
But so as we are opening up the floor for questions, if
Mhm.
you could go back to the version of yourself that swiped your card that day and walked in to the department, this
Mhm.
time as a professor, and you're walking to your class, what would you tell yourself? What would you say to yourself to kind of help you get through that imposter syndrome that you were feeling?
Uh, the thing that I was saying to myself as I was walking in, you belong here. You know, you
Did
belong
you
here.
believe it?
I was making myself believe it as I was walking in because, like, the whole time I was like, yeah, 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 this is what then I was born for this. But then once I parked the car in the back and I was like, oh, this is
You're like, wait a
real
minute.
now. Oh, and I'm
Uh-huh.
walking in and I see other people and I'm like, they're looking at me because I don't look professorly. I've I've come to terms with that. I don't know what professor. I have a
I
vision of
don't know
what
what that
professor is,
means. Well,
but
compared to the other male professors in our department, you
mm,
don't look like, but that's
right.
also because they're older. I'm not going to
I mean,
shame my
I'm older.
colleagues.
I got creative beard. But but
True.
but I
That's
felt,
true.
that was part of it. I'm like, am I not prepared for this? But I have to convince my you belong here. You belong here. And then
Hmm.
getting into the class, it's like, this is what you wanted. Don't be afraid. This is what you wanted. So that's what I would tell myself if I had to go back January 15th. First class was January it was, 19th or
Oh,
something
you
like
remember the
that.
date. Okay.
Oh yeah, I remember these things are emblazoned in my mind. And I just told myself because I had the online classes. That was, online. But
Oh,
this
yeah, yeah.
the
Hmm.
in-person class is my first class is that Thursday, I believe. And I was like, this is what you wanted. And I was like, I hope I'm not nervous and fumble my words.
Hmm.
And I wasn't, but I would tell myself, you belong here. This is what you wanted, your dream, your goal, what you're afraid of. That's what I would have told myself
Yes.
instead of chanting to myself, you belong here, you belong here. I'll just be like, you're supposed to be here. You wanted this.
Yeah.
You planned for this,
Hmm.
planned to work in order to work the plan. That was my plan 12, 15, 20 years ago. That close to the age of 50, I would want to go back and teach at my alma mater. So Most High made it possible, thanks to the help of Dr.
Hmm.
Goodman. And
Hey.
I would just tell myself, you, you're supposed to be doing this.
Yes, no, I love that. So, this has been a great first episode of Between Classes with the Adjunct Academy. I'm excited to bring you all more of these stories from people in my network, my colleagues, my friends. At this point, Lynn, he's family. But I knew that he was going to be a great first person just because I've been able to witness his journey into the classroom.
Yeah, because you're like,
His
you're my mentor.
Sean
You're my
says,
mentor.
"You're walking in your calling. You got this." Yes, because he is like,
Amen.
I'll go and kind of walk through his classes sometimes, and his students are locked in. They are paying attention, and they're doing all the things, which is so great because you know that if they just lean into it, that they'll get everything they need from it. And so
Mm-hmm.
watching Professor Felix become Professor Felix has really been just a really, really great experience for me as his self-appointed and self-titled mentor. I don't
You are.
take that that responsibility lightly. But this is we're going to wrap this up now. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Adjunct Academy on Substack. It is free. There's the
Please
paid
do.
version, but there's a lot of content that you can watch for free. I'll be sharing more experiences and more stories in the coming weeks. But before we go, Professor Felix, let people know where they can learn more about you and your professional work.
My Instagram page, Professor L. Felix. That's at Instagram.com. Professor L. Felix. P R O
That
F
50, your
L.
50 is showing, okay? Your 50 is showing.
Yo, the other day a kid put the iPhone together to transfer a contact. I'm over here trying to airdrop it to him. He said, "No." Ding, ding. I was like, "Why did I not remember that?" I'm old.
Well,
But
we have to embrace
PROFL
it.
Felix, PROFL Felix on Instagram, and I have a burgeoning blog page, Professor L Felix. Again, that's my branding, um,
Mhm.
at WordPress.com. Professor L Felix .wordpress.com.
Okay, so I'm going to include all of that in the
Yep.
show notes.
Mhm.
Thank you so much to everyone that stuck in, that watched us. This has been, I am over the moon. And y'all have a great rest of your evening and see you next time.
All right. Thank you for having me.